The Detroit Pistons have seen quite a few good signs during preseason, but I don't think any sign has been better to see than the play of Jaden Ivey. We'll talk about how impressive he has been in preseason in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Ku Cahill. You can find me over on Twitter at Ku Cahill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today, you'll hear a little bit more about FanDuel later. I want to talk about how JB Bickerstaff has impressed me during preseason a little bit later, and then also talk about Jalen Duren showcasing a little bit of improvement on the defensive end during preseason as well. We'll get to that later on in the podcast, but we've got to start off talking about Jaden Ivey, man. The Pistons, like I said in the cold open, this preseason has shown quite a few good signs. And it's not that anything is perfect. It's not that anyone's thinking that they're going to be like some championship contender now. But there has been, and let me say this one more time, it's preseason. We got to put that disclaimer before everything we talk about. It is preseason. Let's see how it plays out in the regular season. But there has been some good signs during preseason. And earlier today, I made this graphic. My top 5 most impressive Detroit Pistons through 4 preseason games. At number 5, I got Jalen Duren. At number 4, I've got Tobias Harris. At number 3, I got Cade Cunningham. At number 2, I have JB Bickerstaff. At number 1, I have Jaden Ivey, by far and away the most impressive Detroit Piston. So let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter if you guys disagree with that top 5 and what your top 5 would look like. But specifically to get to Jaden Ivey is on an absolute flamethrower during preseason. He's shooting 60.5% from the field, 53% from 3. I'm going to say it again. He's shooting 53% from 3 on 4.3 attempts. He's also shooting 85.7% from the free throw line. He's the Pistons' leading scorer in preseason, 18.3 points per game. He has been absolutely fantastic for the Pistons during preseason. There's no if, ands, or buts about it. If you are a Jaden Ivey fan, if you believed in Jaden Ivey before the start of preseason, this is exactly what you were expecting to see out of him this upcoming year. Now, I want to say this. Does anyone expect Jaden Ivey to continue to shoot 60% from the field? No. Does anyone expect Jaden Ivey to continue to shoot 53% from 3? No, he's not going to shoot that during the season. That's why I'm not so much paying attention to just the raw stats and the raw percentages. That's not what's impressing me. That's not what I want to talk about. There's a few things that I'm watching Jaden Ivey do during preseason that suggests to me that, yeah, maybe he won't shoot 60% from the field and he won't shoot 53% from beyond the arc. But the stuff we're seeing indicates, could he shoot 46% from the field? Yeah, if he continues this play from preseason, can he shoot around 36% from 3? I mean, what we're seeing in preseason suggests that could be in his future this upcoming season. And as I've said multiple times, it's always hard to talk about these things because it is preseason and you don't want to overreact or underreact to anything. You kind of want to take it with a grain of salt until you get to the actual games. But it's absolutely impossible to not sit here and say that Jaden Ivey is showcasing reasons to believe that this could be a breakout year for him. And here's a few things that have really jumped off to me. Number 1, Fred Vinson, a lot of talk was made about how he would help the guys who can't shoot, like a Nassar Thompson, like a Ron Holland, guys like that. How is he going to help them take the next step? I don't feel like enough noise was made, including myself, enough noise made about how he would help guys who aren't maybe, they aren't like non-shooters or aren't great shooters either. Like Jaden Ivey has not been a good shooter. He's not an awful shooter, but he hasn't been a good one either. And he seems like has really helped Jaden Ivey take that next step as a shooter. And it's not because of the raw percentages that's making me say that. Yes, him making the shots helps a ton. It obviously, it plays some part. but along with the fact that he's hitting the shots and his jump shot looks so much better. The form looks so much more fluid. It looks so much more compact. We've talked about this on the podcast a few times for the last few years with Jaden Ivey. The running joke I've had is that sometimes when he takes pull-up jumpers, it looks like he's like parallel with the ground because his lower body is so out of whack. It's flying all over the place. He's kicking his legs. He's doing the splits in the air. Like his body was kind of out of control on these dribble pull-ups. And sometimes you see that play out on catch and shoot threes as well. Well, if you're watching preseason, he's almost jumping and landing in the exact same spot. His legs aren't kicking all over the place. He goes for a dribble pull-up. It's very fluid. It's very under control. He's landing in the same spot. He's not all over the place. It looks like it's a good shot. When he makes it, it looks like it's supposed to go in. And I think that plays a large part into whether a guy is going to have a good shooting season. And I have to assume that Fred Vincent has played a big part in that because that's not how Jaden Ivey's jump shot looked the first 2 years of his career. He's made some adjustments to his shot. He has changed his form. He has changed his base. And he's a lot more under control and compact with his jump shot. That's number one. His jump shot looks a lot better. Number one. Number two, I don't really care for the sidestep threes or the step back threes because it's going to be tough for me to believe in that off a small sample. What I can believe in is how well he is shooting from the corners. He is shooting extremely well from the corners, and him shooting that well from the corners this upcoming season would be a game changer for the Detroit Pistons half-court offense. Now, before anyone gets, I can already see it coming. Why do you want to play him in the corner? Jaden Ivey has taken multiple corner threes, and it's not because he's sitting in the corner during preseason. You are going to take corner threes throughout the fluidity of your half-court offense. That's just how it's going to happen. You have to be able to hit corner threes. Everyone's going to get corner threes, especially those who may not have the ball in their hands as much as a Cade Cunningham. Doesn't mean Jaden Ivey won't have the ball in his hands a lot, but obviously Cade probably won't get as many corner threes up because he's going to have the ball in his hands more. But every other player is going to take corner threes. Tobias is going to take corner threes. Ivey's going to take corner threes. Everyone's going to take them, and you have to be able to hit them. And Jaden Ivey is hitting them at an extremely high rate. I believe he hit 3 this past game. He's shooting extremely well from the corners. So his ability to have that kind of gravity from the corners, and especially like we saw in this past game, Cade Cunningham running a pick and roll and skip passing to Jaden Ivey in the corner and Jaden Ivey just draining it. That is a lethal combination to have. So not only does his jump shot look a lot better just form-wise and like the ability to repeat the jump shot, his jump shot from the corners looks extremely improved. And along with that, I think this might be the most impressive thing to me about Jaden Ivey so far throughout preseason. His ability or how he's improved, or at least tapping back into that bag that a lot of people thought about him coming out of the draft. His ability to impact the game off ball has been tremendous so far in preseason. And it's not just from catch and shoot threes. He is attacking gaps at an extremely high level. When I say attacking gaps, I don't just mean he's doing a good job at this too, but I don't just mean like cutting to the rim. He's doing a great job at slot cuts. When guys are driving to the rim, he's picking the right spots to cut all the way to the rim. But that's not the only way I'm talking about when I say he's attacking gaps. He's attacking gaps off ball when a guy has the ball. Obviously, he doesn't have the ball in his hands. He finds the open area on the three-point line to get a clean shot for himself. If there's an open space in the mid-range, he's finding a way to get to that spot, get the ball, and be able to attack from there. He's also doing a great job at attacking all offensive rebounds as a guard, getting easy buckets for himself off of that. He is finding multitude of ways. And then also, obviously, that involves his off-ball play, which is like transition offense, fast break offense. The Pistons are averaging, I believe, I just had the stat from him. I believe they're at 15.9 points per game on fast breaks. I can go ahead and confirm that for you guys, actually. I could have sworn I just had this, but hold on. Scoring, miscellaneous. Let's get that pulled up. Fast break points. Where are the Pistons at during preseason? Where are they at? Here they are. They're at 19.5 points per game throughout preseason fast break. That has him 10th in the NBA, and he's playing a big part to do with that as well. I understand that he's looked really good with the ball in his hands. He has. I want to see that translate over to the regular season. I need a little bit more sample before I'm just crowning this the comeback season of Ivy. It's looking good, and it's giving signs to believe. But the off-ball stuff, is where he's really showcasing to me that he has matured a lot and he's finding ways to blend with Cade. That's the question that we've all had. Can they play together? And Jaden Ivey looks like he's finding a really good way of blending with Cade off ball. And then also, we'll get into this a little bit later, JB Bickerstaff is doing a great job of making Cade play off of Ivey as well. Ivey has been absolutely exceptional through preseason. I don't know if there's any negative outside of, I don't think anyone is expecting Jaden Ivey to ever be anything more than at least a neutral defender. I think he's been competing defensively. I don't think he's ever going to be above a neutral defender, but he doesn't have to be. He just has to give effort. And has he been given effort in preseason? Absolutely on the defensive end. He's been giving effort. Doesn't mean he's a fantastic defender. He doesn't need to be, though. He's been a really pleasant surprise for me and a really big he's been the most impressive player, most impressive Piston throughout the preseason. He's attacking every rep like it's the playoffs, and he's getting the most out of every rep possible. Jaden Ivey has been absolutely exceptional in every way, and if he continues this throughout the regular season, when the regular season starts up, I feel like the Pistons will feel extremely, extremely confident in their backcourt of the future. But obviously, this is just 4 games of preseason, limited sample. Let's see what it looks like when the regular season starts. Signs are pointing to, though, Jaden Ivey might be having a really good year on his way this upcoming year. But we'll see how it goes when the regular season actually starts. Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at KukaHill. How do you guys feel about what Jaden Ivey has showcased throughout preseason? What has been the most impressive thing to you from Jaden Ivey's preseason? Let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter at KukaHill. When we come back, JB Bickerstaff was number 2 on my most impressive Detroit Pistons through preseason. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I was not expecting that to be the case, but JB Bickerstaff is really making a fan out of me early before the regular season even starts. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. As I've told you guys many a times, a few years ago when betting became legal in Michigan, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to try out. I tried out FanDuel, and I have not turned back since. It's extremely easy to use, super self-explanatory, but most importantly, super fun to use. And if we're looking at FanDuel right now, we got the Buffalo Bills and New York Jets game tonight. I'm going to go ahead and take the money line for the Buffalo Bills at -118. I think the Bills will defeat the New York Jets despite being the away team. I'll go ahead and take that -118 money line with FanDuel for the Buffalo Bills. That's the kind of thing you can do over there at FanDuel. So again, head over to FanDuel.com. You get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. JB Bickerstaff has been incredibly impressive to me so far through preseason. You may be asking, obviously, well, what has he been doing that's so impressive? There's quite a few things. Number one, his use of Cade Cunningham, I've really enjoyed, especially in the last 2 games. I think we've seen more of it. He is using Cade in a multitude of ways. You're not seeing Cade just at the top of the key, running pick and rolls, and that's it. That's not the only way that you're seeing Cade be used. There's been a few times where, let's go ahead and this is the first action I'll bring up. They're running a lot of guard-on-guard action. So, for example, what I mean by that, they'll throw the ball to Cade at the left wing, and then they'll have Jaden Ivey wrap around from the top of the key, and they'll run a guard-on-guard handoff. Or they'll run an action that has both Cade and Ivey involved. They use the gravity of Cade to hand off to Jaden Ivey, and then Jaden Ivey can attack based off how the defense reacts from there. I think that's a really good way of utilizing Cade's gravity and utilizing Jaden Ivey's speed to kind of play off of each other. We didn't see that much this past year with Monty Williams. You've seen it quite a few times through preseason already. And the other thing I really loved from JB Bickerstaff, and this has to do with roster construction as well, but they have much better spacing principles. There's no more guys just wandering around inside the paint. There's not randomly a guy in the dunker spot for no reason. They have guys wing, corner. Guys are spacing the correct way based on where the ball is on the floor. And I'm looking at a play, and this is going to segue me into the next thing that JB is doing that's really impressing me. He's using Cade out of the mid post a ton. And this play from the Golden State Warriors game, the score is 71-53. Jalen Duren gets the ball at the top of the key. He throws it down to Cade Cunningham at the mid post. It's an empty corner. Cade has that whole side to himself. You got Jaden Ivey in the corner. You got Tobias Harris at the wing. And you got, that's Malik Beasley in the corner. You got Tobias Harris at the wing. You got Jaden Ivey at the top of the key. So it's evenly spaced out. And off of this action, we have seen multiple different actions played off of this mid post. You have seen Cade Cunningham go into a mid post isolation, which utilizing his size is a good idea. It's something we've wanted to see from the Pistons since he came out of college. So JB Bickerstaff is using that. So you get the mid post isolation. You also have seen them use a mid post dribble handoff. Well, Cade will get this ball at the mid post, and then he'll dribble up and hand off with Jaden Ivey, like I just mentioned. And Jaden Ivey will come off, and you have good spacing. You have Jalen Duren most of the times at the high post on the opposite block, or not the opposite block, the opposite high post. And you got them running a handoff action out of Cade Cunningham mid post, as that being like the core of the action. Cade operating out of the mid post. And then on this play that I'm referencing right here, I believe it's in the third quarter, 71-53 is the score. Cade is going to run a pick and roll from the mid post. Cade gets the ball. Jalen Duren follows the pass, immediately runs after the pass. You follow through the pass. He goes, he sets a screen in about the high post area for Cade. Cade wraps around. Obviously, Cade is lethal from that area. You can't give him an open mid-range. He's damn near automatic from that area. I believe that's Tracy Jackson Davis comes up and tries to contest and take that away. You got easy dunk for Jalen Duren now rotating or rolling to the rim. Just that right there is impressive enough to me about JB Bickerstaff, because you did not see that kind of creativity on Monty Williams' offense this past year. Now, you can blame roster construction for the spacing principles. That certainly played a part in it. But Monty Williams also, I think everyone knows, did a terrible job with the Detroit Pistons this past year. He was dealt a bad hand, but then did the worst possible job you could have with the bad hand. And you didn't see stuff like this. You didn't see Cade run mid-post. Every now and then you'd see Cade kind of dribble himself into a post-up, but that's not the same thing as running actions off of it, setting it up to where it's actually, Cade's in a spot that he's comfortable with. Having him dribble down from the high post or from the left wing, and then him having to back down off a live dribble and guys kind of running all around. You don't have good spacing principles. You're not running good actions off of it. It's kind of just random. That's not the way it should be going. So that right there is just an example of what I've been really impressed from JB Bickerstaff. I've talked about in the first segment how he has Cade and Jaden Ivey playing off of each other and running actions off of each other. I really enjoyed that. Another thing I really love from him is how he is staggering Cade and Ivey, and how he's utilizing them well together, but then getting them plenty of time without one another, so they both have evenly spaced out lineups. You have Cade, Jaden coming out first, it seems like, for Simone Fontecchio, or whether it's THJ or Malik Beasley coming off the bench. We don't really know which one it's been, but it's been both throughout preseason. You got a spacer coming in. So then Cade's running with a lineup of Cade, Tobias Harris, either Malik Beasley or THJ, and Jalen Duren. You got three shooters around him and a lob threat with them. Perfectly spaced out floor, and he's running it to absolute, I don't want to say perfection, but he's doing it really well. Cade, I believe, per 36, is averaging damn near like 11 assists a game so far in preseason in just 24 minutes a game. Just 24 minutes a game. He's averaging 7 assists to 2 turnovers a game. Cade with space is good offense. Cade with space will produce easy looks. This past game against the Suns, the Pistons could not hit the shot at all. They couldn't hit anything. They could not hit actually, it wasn't the Suns they played. It was the Warriors. I'm sorry. They could not hit anything against the Warriors. Their veteran sharpshooters could not hit the ocean. They couldn't throw a rock into the ocean. And despite this, Cade ended the game with 7 assists. If those guys hit their shots, we're talking about Cade's averaging like 10, 11 assists. And that's just because of spacing principles and using him with the correct lineups and using him in all these different types of ways. We've seen Cade run off-ball screens a little bit. We've also seen him come off pin downs. We've seen him just space and be that spacer at the wing for Jaden Ivey, and he runs that pick and roll, so guys can't pinch off of the pick and roll when he comes around that side. And when I say pinch down, to quickly explain that, let's say Jaden Ivey runs a pick and roll at the left wing. He comes off to the right side. Pinching is that guy, the defender who's guarding the wing on the opposite wing, is going to pinch down and try to swipe down the ball and make that driving lane really tight. And they did that a lot the last few years against the Pistons because they didn't have spacers at that wing. Well, if you put Jaden Ivey or Cade, let's say Jaden Ivey has the ball in his hands, you put Cade in that wing, I don't think defenses are going to be just pinching hard off of Cade, and they haven't been. So it frees up options for Jaden Ivey to drive, to pass, to really feel comfortable in that area. So that's just another thing JB Bickerstaff has done. I've absolutely loved it. I've been more impressed by how he's using these guys offensively than I thought he would. And that was a question mark for me, how he would look offensively. I mean, that's not even including how he's got them competing defensively. It's hard to look at just the defensive ratings as, okay, let's see how this team's doing. Oh, look, the defensive rating through preseason has been great because, a quarter and a half at least is always with like end of bench guys. So take this with a grain of salt. But the Pistons do have a 98.5 defensive rating through 4 games. That would be the third best throughout the entire preseason. Again, it's preseason. A lot of guys aren't even playing. It's hard to take that with a lot of grain of salt. But I would say if you've been watching the games, it somewhat matches the eye test because you've got guys like Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley competing defensively. We'll talk about Jalen Duren a little bit later. You're seeing Cade make really good rotations off ball. Even just in that first half, the first 2.5 quarters when the real rotation's playing, I feel like the defense has been somewhat impressive to me based off the personnel they've had. So JB's getting, it seems like through preseason, he's getting the most out of them defensively. He's been a little bit more creative offensively than I thought he would be. And then the last thing, I love the rotation that he has. It's a 9-man rotation. He's not trying to play 10, 11 guys. There's no need for that. Good teams don't play 10 guys. They don't do it. They have a 9-man rotation, and they play the best 9 guys. And they do really good staggering lineups off of it. How he staggered Cade and Ivey. I really love the rotation, and I love the fact that he's bringing in, I had this mentioned to me earlier by Bryce Simon when it appeared on the Pistons Pulse, and it was a really good point. It seems like Ron Holland has been checking in every single time with Isaiah Stewart. So if Ron Holland's going to be on the floor, you're going to have a stretch 5 with him. You're not going to have Ron Holland with Jalen Duren on the floor and having 2 guys that can't shoot. I'm sure it's happened a little bit, but almost every time Ron's coming in, it's with Isaiah Stewart. I think that's pretty smart by JB as well. JB has just impressed me in a lot of ways throughout preseason. I mean, that's just a few reasons. We could go on for another 10 minutes, 15 minutes talking about things that JB Bickerstaff has done through preseason that has impressed me. Again, it's preseason. We got to see it play out in the regular season. We got to see it translate to the regular season. We have to. As I've said before, I'm 26 years old. I've watched the Pistons since 2009, 2010. I've seen many preseason where things look good and then they immediately go awry. I've seen things look bad in preseason and things immediately look better when the regular season starts. You got to see how it looks when the regular season starts. But these are all incredibly good signs to think, okay, this may actually translate. This may actually be a fun season. They may actually be on the right path. You can't sit here and say that's not how it's looked so far. So hopefully it does translate to the regular season. Ivey's really impressed me, but number 2, man, JB Bickerstaff, man, is doing a lot. It's not that I thought he was a bad coach. He's just doing better than I thought he would already in preseason. I've liked what he's done. So let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter @KukaHill. Have you been impressed by JB Bickerstaff? And what has impressed you the most? And if you haven't been impressed, what would you like him to change? Let me know comment section down below or over on Twitter @KukaHill. When we come back, Jalen Duren, even defensively, even Jalen Duren on defense. JD, if you listen to the podcast, what's up, man? Really enjoy the defense we're seeing from you. Jalen Duren looks like he's improving on the defensive end, and that could be big time for the Detroit Pistons. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel @Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. I do want to shout this out for you guys. I see a lot of you guys have already started to figure it out. I want to take all my Locked On Pistons listeners, and move them over to my personal YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is just KukaHill. After every regular season game, I've already posted one for a preseason game. We won't do it again until a regular season game. But after every regular season game, I will be uploading to that channel a film breakdown of the 4 to 5 best plays or my favorite plays from that game. I've already had, like I said, we already had quite a few of you guys already notice it and go over and hit the subscribe button and like the video. I appreciate you guys. But if you guys want some of that content and you guys are ready to get some of that content, I can't wait to get started with it. Go hit the subscribe button. It's KukaHill on YouTube. We get film breakdowns all throughout the year consistently over there. So I appreciate all of you guys. Go hit that subscribe button over there. Jalen Duren. I've said this all throughout offseason. I'm going to continue to say it. Jalen Duren improving as a defender is the biggest X factor for the Pistons this upcoming year. If Jalen Duren can improve as a defender, that will change the Pistons' fortunes more so than anything but Cade becoming like a superstar this season. That's the only thing that would have a bigger impact than Jalen Duren improving as a defender. And I think he just had his best game as a defender against Golden State. Let me say this real quickly about JD's defense so far through preseason before we get into the straight up good. I do think he's still struggling a bit in the pick and roll. I think he's still trying to understand the angles to take in drop coverage and the amount of depth he should have in drop coverage. How far back he should be going. Should he be playing higher? Sometimes he's let the big man get behind him a little bit. They try to run him at the level a little bit more against Milwaukee, and Dame kind of just shredded that. So I don't think you'll see him play much at the level. And I think against Milwaukee, you saw him have a little bit of struggles against stretch bigs. So I think is he like at a perfect level? No, he's not. I don't think he's transformed defensively. He still has a ways to go, and he needs to continue to develop. And again, like I said, it's just preseason. We need to see where he's at actually in the real games. With that said, against the Golden State Warriors, Jalen Duren had 3 blocks. And throughout the first 3 games of preseason, he didn't have like 2, 3, 4 blocks in the first 3 games. However, if you guys remember on the podcast, I had been saying, the pick and roll coverage seems like it's still work in progress. However, you can clearly see he's putting an emphasis on simply contesting shots at the rim. And it wasn't translating to blocks. It doesn't always need to translate to blocks. Simply having your center, your anchor of your defense, contest shots at the rim changes your defense. Simply having him try to be a rim deterrent. Simply having him being active around the rim. That does so much for your defense. And for the majority, almost 90% of last season on defense, he just wasn't attacking any shots at the rim. He was just letting guys go by. He wasn't really active, really at all, around the basket defensively last year for the Detroit Pistons. Throughout 4 preseason games, he's only averaging 1 block a game. He had 3 in the last game, so he only had 1 in the other games, in the other 3. However, like I said, he is contesting shots at the rim. He is jumping at shots. He is trying to block more shots. And I almost would rather him, like if I had to pick between be ultra aggressive trying to block shots and be last year, I'd rather him be ultra aggressive trying to block shots, pick up some fouls, and maybe, us be frustrated that he's leaving his feet a little bit too much, rather than him just not be active at all around the rim. So that's an area where it's clearly clicking for him, I think, and you should be able to see that translate to the regular season. And I believe I spoke with Omari on the podcast as well, Pistons Pulse podcast, and he mentioned that at practice earlier this week. They asked him, what has JB Bickerstaff really asked you to prioritize defensively? And he mentioned to be that rim protector. All offseason, the talk has been for me to become that rim protector. And does he need to improve in pick and roll coverage? Yes. Does he need? But he's really young. That's the other thing too. That's why I said 2 years ago when they drafted him, he is not going to hit his stride, be a prime. He's not going to hit his prime for another 5-6 years. Like, he is a long way away from being a finished product. So it's going to take time for him to improve in all these areas. So does he need to improve as, so far from what we've seen in preseason? It's a limited sample and it is just preseason. Again, put that disclaimer. It could change when the regular season starts. But so far from what we've seen during preseason, does it look like he still has work to do in the pick and roll coverage? Yes. Does it seem like they're still trying to figure out what's his best pick and roll coverage? Somewhat, yes. Does he still need to grow in a lot of areas defensively? Yes. Does it seem like that him needing to be a rim protector has clicked? Yes. It seems like that part has definitely clicked. Whether that translates to him averaging 2-3 blocks a game or 1 block a game, it seems like so far through 4 straight preseason games, if there's one constant I can say about Jalen Duren's defense that was not there this past year, if there is one constant through 4 preseason games that we've seen from JD, is the fact that he is contesting shots at the rim. And that, in and of itself, will make a big difference for the Pistons defense. If he can improve in the other areas too, that would be big time. But simply being active around the rim and trying to block shots will change so many things for the Pistons defense. It's not just coming, if you look at his 3 blocks from this past game, it wasn't just from guys driving to the rim, then he's rotating over and blocking it. There was one when a guy slipped behind him on a backdoor cut, he turned around, recovered, and swatted it off the glass. There's another one where Cade got beat off the dribble, I believe, and I believe it was DeAnthony Melton tried to floater it up. JD rotated over, swatted it out of bounds. And then obviously you have the one where guys are just driving to the rim and he's just sitting at the rim and then he swats it. He is active in every single way as a rim protector so far through 4 preseason games, I should say. So that's a big deal. It just is. It's just a big. They need that from JD. They absolutely need Duren to be active around the rim, and he's been that through 4 games. And if that translates to the regular season, you can deal with some of the other weaknesses he has. And I think some of the pick and roll coverage as well will be helped once Ausar Thompson comes back. I think, and along with Ausar Thompson coming back, the guys guarding the ball handler, improving in pick and roll coverage also will help him a lot. Like a lot of times last year, guys got stuck on screens. They didn't do a good job getting off, going around screens. They oftentimes didn't do a very good job trailing on pick and rolls. So they need to help him out as well, especially for a young big. He needs help. So it's going to take time for those other areas to improve, yes. But just be a rim protector. Jump at shots. Attempt to block shots. Just do it. And if it gives up offensive rebounds behind you because the guy behind your teammate didn't rotate, that's not your fault. It is what it is. At least you're improving as a rim protector. You need your teammates to help you out behind. And from what we've seen, Cade has really taken up that mantle to be the guy to help JD behind. Once he rotates, I'm going and getting that rebound. Cade just had a game where he had 12 rebounds. I really feel I feel good about the signs we're seeing about this team defensively, and it starts with, obviously, JB Bickerstaff. It starts with the rotation we're seeing from Tobias Harris and Cade Cunningham off ball. But the biggest impact will be Jalen Duren being impactful around the rim and swatting shots and attempting to swat shots. So I really hope this translates to the regular season. Let's hurry up and get to October 23rd, man. I'm tired of having to put the disclaimer in front of it being preseason. I need to see this stuff in real games and see if it translates. Because if it does, it could be a fun year for Pistons fans. But let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill how you guys are feeling so far through preseason and how you guys feel about Jalen Duren on defense. Again, let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Until next time, peace out.